Welcome once again to Fitz in Law School. I'm Fitz, and today is Victory Day. Today is the day after finals. The first finals of my first semester in law school is officially over, and I don't know. I feel pretty amazing right now. I feel pretty fantastic, I do have to say. And I'm sure everyone out there who just got done with finals, whether you're in law school or anything else, I'm sure you feel good too. So, good work, guys. We did it. We did it. So, today, I essentially want to talk about finals. I want to talk about what it was like, the pressure, what I could do better, all those kinds of things. So, finals in law school. Finals in law school, as we've said before on other videos, there's a lot of pressure. And the reason there's a lot of pressure is because most of the time, most classes have their class grading structure set up so that you go and you read and you talk in class and you sometimes do activities, all that stuff, but the vast majority of the time it's like 5% class participation or something like that, and 95% the final test or the final. So because of that, there's just a lot of pressure, and people, get ragged and get super just stressed out by it. I definitely lost sleep. That's actually, and everyone also kind of does their own thing about how to deal with stress. The test is essentially, it's super structured. It's kind of like the LSAT. It's not like you have an assigned seat or anything like that, but you essentially walk into a room and you go and kind of check in with this proctor person who sits there in front of the class while everyone takes a test. You can't sit right next to people. You have to sit at least 2 seats away. I mean, again, it's just like the LSAT. You go and you sign in, you have your ID and all that stuff, and then you sign a little thing that says, I hereby promise not to cheat, and all that stuff. And then we had the option, and I'm sure that all schools do this now, we have the option of taking ours either on the computer or by Blue Book. I'm not quite sure why anyone would ever do Blue Book. There was 1 or 2 people in my inn anyway that did that, and good for them, man. I don't know if I would want to do that because it's just easier to type nowadays. But yeah, and then the vast majority of them. So I had 3 finals. I had a final in Civ Pro, I had a final in Contracts, and I had a final in Torts, and it was in that order. And I was most concerned about the Contracts final. There's just a lot of rules. There's a lot of things that are just, it's not quite that they're confusing, it's that Torts and Civ Pro was really good, easy for me to pick up, because I don't know, I like the rules, I like the structure, I like the that kind of a thing. And our teacher was just fantastic. All 3 of my teachers were fantastic. I really lucked out. There were a couple of TAs they were talking to, our inn, that's what that's called at my school. And essentially what it is you have the entire student body. So for us, it's about 300 people or something. And then we're divided into 4 subgroups where you kind of that's primarily who you stick with as your class and take classes with and all that stuff. For your first year. And so it kind of solidifies that thing, and it helps to have friends who are suffering in the exact same way that you are, so that you can, study together and bond over your mutual suffering and all that stuff. It's a good idea. A lot of times they're called small sections or something like that. And as far as I know, it seems like all schools do that. But yeah, so the final itself was each final was essentially the same kind of thing. There is between, I guess, probably 10 and 20 and 10 to 25, I guess, multiple choice questions. And multiple choice questions are essentially all the same. And that's, you have a paragraph or 2 paragraphs or sometimes even longer, but of facts, and then you have 4 choices afterwards. And these are slowly being tweaked so that they match closer and closer and closer to the bar exam. So they really are just, they're teaching for the bar exam. That's what they're doing. And usually it's how would you rule? If you're the judge, how would you advise the judge if they were doing something who would, not really who would win, but just, okay, here's the situation. Does this person have a claim? If so, what is it? If this person chooses to bring a lawsuit, what will be the result? But it's not quite who will win. It's more about what are the elements within the fact pattern that they have a claim to bring. And so a lot of times it was, no, they don't have a claim because of X, or yes, they have a claim because of Y, that kind of thing. And then it's also, there's a motion to dismiss. How would you advise the judge? Or if you were the judge, how would you rule on it? No, those kind of things. It's pretty basic, standard multiple choice questions, but it is really centered upon the subject that you're talking about. So, like, for torts, we had 10 multiple choice questions. For contracts, we had, I think, 15. And then for Civ Pro, I think we had 20 or 25. It was something like that. And then for Civ Pro, we had 2 essays. For contracts, we had 3 essays. And for torts, we had 2 essays. And usually how it's broken up is that the multiple choice questions for us, but it seems like this is like pretty standard across the board, at least for your first year, that your grade is broken up so that it's 1/3 of the grade on the test is assigned to the multiple choice questions, and then the other 2/3 are assigned to the essays. So essentially it's either split between 2 essays, or in terms of contracts it was split between those 3, but the first one was by far the most complicated and long and all that stuff. The second one was not as long. The third one was short. So that was the finals. And that's essentially what they look like. But you sit down, and like they have pencils and all that stuff that you would need for the test. We took the multiple choice questions via Scantron, and then after that we either did Blue Book or we did it on the computer to type up our essays. Let's see. I really like sitting in the front. Similar to why I like sitting in the front during class is because it's distracting to me to see other people in front of me, and so I just like to sit in the front, which is really nice. Well, no, yeah, that's essentially like what the test looks like, and the test is usually between 2.5 and 3 hours long. So it's your day gone basically. One of my finals, the contracts final, started at 8:30 a.m. The other 2 started at 1:30 a.m. or 1:30 p.m. Jeez, that would not be very nice. But they went well. I feel pretty confident. The difficult part about that is, especially like, for example, if you it's just like the LSAT. Again, it's exactly like the LSAT, where these are logic questions. These are questions where you go and you reason out exactly why you feel this way, and then you answer it in a certain way. And so obviously everyone's going to feel confident because you came to that conclusion. And so it could be the complete wrong conclusion. And you could feel great about it, and then you get it incorrect. So a lot of professors were saying, don't think too much about this and don't, the second, like, me and this one student, her and I are really kind of similar in that we like to talk about these things and we'd like to go back and forth, and her and I were the talkers in all of our classes, but we actually really liked to talk about them, and I like to talk about the test. Most people don't, and most of our teachers say don't do that because you'll drive yourself insane, and by stress and worry and all that stuff, and saying, oh, could I have done this, could I have done that? And so I think that's probably a good idea. So yeah, just relax, take it easy. It's all done. You did it. Good work. Let's see. So, the experience. So the experience for me, during the finals period. So the finals period for UC Hastings is a 3-week-long period, and essentially, for first years anyway, 1 test per week. And so there's between 6 or 7 days in between each test. So that means that just means you have a lot of time in between each test. And so that could be good or bad things. I didn't really like it because I don't like the waiting. The waiting is always the worst part for any of these stressful situations. So I would say that I wanted less time in between the tests because, I don't know, I think that I was in that study mode, in that essay mode, in that final mode, something like that, for a very solid period of time. And so I wanted to take the test. And so when I first did the Civ Pro test, I was really ready for it, and I was really, yes, finally we could do it. And then in between the Civ Pro and Contracts final, I was thinking that, if you go and you prepare for the test, and then you feel really, really good about the test, and then you do it, and you feel terrible afterwards, then you might want to change up your study habits. You might want to change up how exactly you prepare for the next test. And so if you have a long period of time in between the two tests, then you can practically, realistically change the way that you're studying, or the way that you're absorbing information, or the way that you're approaching the test in the first place. If you have 2 days in between, you can't do that. If you have 7 days in between, you can do that. So I think that ultimately it was probably a good thing. The more time that I have to do something, the more, and it seems like this is how it was for most people, that the more likely that we are to perhaps procrastinate, or you might not study as well as you could if you were like really under the gun, if you have 3 days or 2 days or something. So I definitely procrastinated a little bit more than I should have. But I mean, that's a judgment call, and so I'm sure everyone will say, yeah, I could have always done better. Let's see. All right, let's talk about outlining for the test. So outlining for the test is really something that a lot of people really, really hammer home as something that's super important. So outlining for the test, or outlining for the class essentially, is what you're going to be working on the entire semester. You're going to be working on one document that encapsulates the entire semester's worth of information into really easy, quick, digestible, bite-sized bits of information. And it's just going to be a long list, and it really depends. I did not really do outlining. There was some part of it that just didn't really make sense to me, and I don't think that it really would have helped me that much to have something that was complete throughout the entire semester, and then just kind of look at it, stare at it, reread it, and reread it, and read it. That's really not how I learn, I guess. And actually, it also depends on the subject matter. So, for civil procedure, I did flashcards. That was for it works better based on the subject matter and how that subject is really presented to you. What exactly are you supposed to learn? Then tweak how you study that accordingly. So for Civ Pro and for contracts, flashcards were actually a pretty good use. A pretty good way to study that subject matter. For torts, it was cases. I just read cases over and over and over again and really got those kind of element-driven things down, and then a story that was attached to it. Versus contracts is really, they're not bright line rules, but they do rely heavily on the restatement. They rely heavily on the UCC, which didn't really come up in the test. And I know that a couple of students were a little peeved about that. Because we spent so much time studying it and it's not on the final, but whatever. So if I were to try and give you some advice, it's that you should probably not use a uniform way of studying if that's what works. However, just because something is uniform doesn't necessarily mean it's the best way to tackle a situation. So I also think that there's something to be said about creating the outline in the finals period. However, we had weeks in between. So some schools don't have weeks in between, and so that's just not practical. Like for our reading period, right smack dab in the reading period was Thanksgiving, which is kind of annoying. But what are you gonna do? But the act of creating that outline, the act of going through and kind of synthesizing all the information, but actively synthesizing it by creating it, not by staring at it and reading it over and over again. I think that might be a better way of doing it. But again, it depends on you. It depends on how you do these things. And then for torts, I actually did do like a kind of the classic list kind of an outline. And then I will also say that using other people's outlines or going and buying an outline on the internet or something like that, I don't think that's a good idea. Before I left Google, one of my best lawyer friends there gave me and he was a total badass, went to Stanford, all that jazz, and he really strongly advised me against using other people's outlines. He said, just don't do it. So many people go and do that, and it's not a good idea, because that's the outline, that's the method, the way that they've designed that piece of paper. That works best for them. I mean, I saw lots of pretty interesting and different outlines. There were tons of people who used timelines. For contracts especially, just a big long, I mean, it was like 8 pieces of paper that was taped together, and she actually unfolded it, and it was the timeline of like where to apply the certain rules within the like life of a case. It was pretty amazing. Let's see here. So stick with your own outline, and study the way that works for you best. And then what would I do differently? I don't know if I would create like I will say that I have already started, like, funny enough, actually yesterday, yesterday, an hour or two before the final, we got an email from one of our professors for next semester about the reading for next semester. And so we're just like, couldn't you wait until the day after or something like that? Which is kind of funny. But what would I do differently? I would have read more cases in every single one of the classes. Perhaps not, well, no. It depends on each one. For Civ Pro, I wouldn't do anything different. I think that I knocked Civ Pro out of the park, and I felt really, really comfortable with that. For contracts, I would have studied just the restatement and the UCC a little bit better. Just would have probably like read and reread every single one of the rules that we should have known for the test. Just over and over and over again. I mean, to be honest, that's kind of how I synthesize information, is if I go and I read it, then I have a pretty good ability to hold on to that information. Because again, that subject is driven in a big part by the restatement and by the UCC. So that's what I would do. For torts, I had a pretty good analysis of the situations that we were given in the hypotheticals. However, I could not remember that many cases that explicitly reference those kinds of situations. I could only remember the concepts that came out of them. So, I would have felt comfortable if I had, for each essay, like probably like 5 cases that I could call back on or name or whatever, and I only did about 2 or 3 for each one, which kind of bugs me. So I probably would have done that. But other than that, I don't know. Yeah, not procrastinating as much, but again, if you go back and you continue to nitpick every single thing that you do, then you're gonna drive yourself insane. So try not to do that. However, I think that is the end of this video, and I think that I can say congratulations, great work, everyone. Finals are over. Wow, finals are over. My first semester of law school. Dear Lord, this, I kept on making the joke, in the first or second week or something, that these 3 years are gonna fly by, and they're gonna be the quickest, and they're gonna fly by, and they're going to be the longest 3 years of my life, because it's so intense what you're doing right now. And so in the moment, the time seems to drag on, and then you look back. When you're busy, time flies. It's not when you're having fun, it's when you're busy, it's when you're occupied, it's when you're doing something with your life that time really does fly by. I'm pretty happy right now, and pretty amazed that it's done. Like, it happened. It's amazing. Lots of different ways to deal with stress, so make sure you deal with it the right way. I really started trying to work out again, which was really nice. And I also started cooking weird and random things. So yeah, that was funny. But congratulations everyone again, and I hope everyone has a great holiday. We're probably going to do perhaps one of these big videos about, what about? Kind of during downtime, something like that. Oh no, actually, summer jobs. So I started 2 weeks ago because usually 95% of the time, places kind of like they open up and start taking resumes for summer. So that's summer of 2019 for me, as at the time of making this video, on December 1st of the fall or of the previous year. So that means that got to start working on those summer jobs. So I think that next video we're gonna talk about summer jobs. All right. See you later, bro.